Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Okimalo here in Abuja. We begin on a rather sad note as Nigeria's lost yet a very illustrious son of his, Pa Ayo Adebanjo, a foremost Nigerian nationalist, Edo State man and leader of Pan-Yoruba socio-cultural group Afenifere, died today. He's dead at the age of 96. He died peacefully at his residence in Lekki, in Lagos State, earlier today, and the family has released a statement and confirming his passing. It said, quote, "With a heavy heart, full of gratitude for a selfless life spent in the service of God, the nation, and humanity, we announce the passing of our beloved patriarch, Chief Samuel Ayodele Adebanjo. He died peacefully this morning, Friday, February the 14th, 2025, at his Lekki, Lagos, Nigeria home at the age of 96. Trusting that Pa Ayo Adebanjo departed this world on Valentine's Day. This was a man who fondly calls me Aburo, meaning a younger brother. Serves being a guest on our program Politics Today, Sunday Politics frequently, and he's being a strong voice on whatever he believed in. Pa Ayo Adebanjo will be sorely missed. All right, then we'll move to check out some of your political roundup stories.
Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has assured that no challenge facing his administration is insurmountable, emphasizing the government has something that is bigger than any trouble that anybody can imagine. Governor Fubara stated this after the swearing-in of the chairman and members of the Assembly Service Commission and Local Government Service Commission at the Government House in Port Harcourt. The governor charged the commission to address the issue of ghost workers for effective implementation of the 85,000 naira minimum wage, as well as proper promotion of staff.
This assignment is not business as usual. You have to take full charge, and you have to ensure that there is discipline in the service.
In Imo State, the State Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Kajtan Duke, a chieftain of the APC, former lawmaker representing Ngo Pala State constituency, Blyden Amajironwu, and the state legal advisor, Uche Onwosu, have resigned from the All Progressives Congress. Addressing a joint press conference in Owerri, the Imo State capital, the former APC chieftains thanked President Bola Tinubu, the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma, and the APC chairman in the state for their support and opportunity given to them to serve in the party.
This decision was not taken lightly, but after careful consideration, I have decided to move on to a new challenge that aligns with my values and goals. I am grateful for the opportunity to have served the APC Imo State in this capacity, and I appreciate the support, the trust that the party leadership and members have given to me during the term.
3 members of the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, have defected to the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, in Kaduna State, citing the impressive performance of the state governor, Senator Uba Sani, as their reasons for leaving the PDP. The 3 lawmakers are Henry Mara representing Jambo State constituency, Emmanuel Kantiok, Zonkwa constituency, and Samuel Kamabai representing Zango Kataf constituency. Some concerned members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, are calling on the National Working Committee of the party to resolve the leadership crisis in the party. At a news conference in Abuja, the leader of the group, Dabo Ikiabo Warmate, emphasized the importance of unity in the party and called for a peaceful resolution. The group called on the Governors Forum and the Board of Trustees of the party to review their position on seat of the National Secretary of the party and allow Senator Sam Anyanwu to conclude his tenure in office. At least 5 political parties are expected to participate in Saturday's local government election in Katsina State. The chairman of the Katsina State Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Lawal Faskari, made a disclosure during a media briefing ahead of the exercise at the commission's headquarters in Katsina, the state capital. According to Mr. Faskari, distribution of non-sensitive and sensitive electoral materials will begin today across the 34 local government areas of the state.
And there you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. We're also going to be able to tell you that President Bola Tinubu has arrived in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, where he will be attending the Heads of State and Governments Summit of the African Union in Ethiopia. The president has left the country a few days ago. He went first to France, and now he will be meeting on the issues relating to the continent, the sub-region, and Nigeria. He might be having some meetings on the sideline about bilateral, diplomatic, and some foreign relations. And one issue perhaps that have taken the attention of a lot of Nigerians is what the National Security Advisor said. The National Security Advisor, Mr. Nuhu Bado, has rebuked the Canadian embassy for denying the Chief of Defense Staff, CDS General Christopher Musa, and other Army chiefs visas. The NSA at a lecture of the National Association of the Institute of Security Studies says to Canada, you can go to hell. It described the visa snub as disrespectful while reacting to comments earlier made by the CDS, who narrated how he and other top military officers were supposed to be in Canada for an official assignment on Wednesday but were denied visa. Let's take a listen first to what the CDS said reporting that incident.
Thank you for the courage to say that Canada denied you. They can go to hell. Even though it's painful, it's disrespectful, but we are people. We are strong. And I agree with you. We have to fix our country. We have to do it well. Yes, this disrespect is too much. So, yet is another reason why we work hard to make Nigeria work and be respected.
I was actually meant to, by yesterday, have been in Canada, Vancouver, Canada. There's an event to honor our veterans, those that were injured during battle. Remember last year, the Duke of Sussex visited Nigeria with his wife. Through the Invictus, they have a foundation that they try to raise the morale of troops all over the world that have suffered one form of deformity or the other in the course of defending their individual countries. So we're supposed to be there. And actually, half of my team have already gone, but unfortunately, the Canadian embassy, for knowledge best known to them, denied us visa. So I wasn't sure, and so I wanted to be quite silent about it. But when we couldn't get the visa, I said, this is blessing in disguise.
That was those comments that got a lot of Nigerians talking about this morning. There's another aspect of our national security that's gotten a lot of Nigerians reacting to it, and it was what was said by a representative on Congress in the United States, Mr. Perry. This really got a lot of people talking. Inferences made from the statement in the inquisition of how the funding that went into USAID, United States Aid Funding Organization, spent some of the monies in its coffers. I'll allow you to listen to what the representative said when that inquisition was going on in the American Parliament.
We spent $697 million of the taxpayers' dollars in Afghanistan, including $534,719,000 in change from USAID in Afghanistan. I don't know what we think we're going to change in Afghanistan. We lost 22,000, lost or wounded 22,500 Americans in Afghanistan over the course of our term there in the war, spending over $2 trillion. We're just going to keep on spending because somehow we think it's going to get better. And if you're wondering who's in charge of Afghanistan getting the money, and that money I just mentioned, the $697 million is on top of, and is in addition to the weekly to every 10-day shipments in cash of $40 to $80 million. Afghanistan is ruled by folks named Sarajuddin Haqqani. Haqqani network mean anything to anybody in the room? How about Abdullah bin Laden? Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door. USAID spent $840 million in the last 20 years on Pakistan's education-related program. It includes $136 million to build 120 schools, of which there is zero evidence that any of them were built. Why would there be any evidence? The Inspector General can't get in to see them. But you know what? We doubled down and spent $20 million from USAID to create educational television programs for children unable to attend the physical school. Yeah, they can't attend it because it doesn't exist. You paid for it. Somebody else got the money. You are paying for terrorism. This has got to end.
Thus, U.S. Congressman Scott Perry, who's making heavy allegations in the inquisition into how USAID is spent the monies in their purview over the last few years. I'm being joined tonight by a security expert, One Channel's television's security consultant, Dr. Kabiru Adamu joins us. He's also the executive director of Beacon Consulting. Thank you so much indeed, Dr. Adamu, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Let's begin perhaps from those comments made by the CVS and the NSA. And perhaps a lot of people will believe that this country has been disrespected for far too long. And for the first time in a long time, we see military top brass coming and say, this is what we experience. And those who are on the inside will say, that is not the first time that military officers or top Nigerian officials are experiencing that kind of treatment from some other countries. But let us have an understanding of what you make of that kind of treatment and the response that we got from the NSA.
Thank you. So just to give it a little bit of context, I was at the event. It was an event organized by the Alumni Association of National Institute for Strategic Studies, the institution that was founded by the Department of State Services to train its officers and other security personnel in national security. So the Alumni Association organized its first maiden lecture with the title Mobilizing Stakeholders for Addressing National Security, and they invited different security heads. Of course, the National Security Advisor was there, the Chief of Defense Staff was there, and several other heads of different security MDAs. And in his goodwill message, the Chief of Defense Staff did indicate that he had applied for a visa and that it was rejected, but that the reason for the rejection was not made known to him. And so after his goodwill message, the National Security Advisor, who I think was the chairman of the event, he came to the stage to speak. And so in his speech, he commended the Chief of Defense Staff for his courage to admit that something like that happened, and then made that, I would say, rather undiplomatic statement out of perhaps anger and surprise that someone of the caliber of the Chief of Defense Staff would be denied a visa by a friendly country. By my training, I'm not emotional. When things happen like that, I try to take a step back and ask some very critical questions. And over time, some revelations have emerged. Part of what we're hearing is perhaps the procedure for applying for the visa was faulty. Normally, in relations between governments, there is a note verbal, which the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would usually write on behalf of a subsisting MDA when they are approaching an embassy. So what we're hearing is that in this regard, that note verbal was not accompanied. Now, that may have been the reason for the denial. Now, whether it was a denial outright or a rejection, as it were, pending the submission of those documents, only a full-fledged investigation would show. So that's what I mean by not being emotional. I would have expected that the Defense Headquarters would write to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who in turn would either invite or write to the Canadian High Commission to ask specific questions. Someone of the caliber of the Chief of Defense Staff is visiting your country for an official function. Why was his visa rejected or denied? And they would have explained, officially to the Nigerian government. So I'm not sure all of that was done. Rather, what we saw, and since then we've not received any statement either from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or from the Canadian High Commission to indicate what happened.
So also, as a journalist, I try to toe that professional line of not getting emotional in matters like this, especially when you do not know the full picture of things. However, I mean, there has been a lot of disrespect to the peoples of this country and also to this country. And there are those of us who believe that we need a very strong leader to send a message. Nigerians sometimes don't need to go anywhere. We could be fine just being in our homes and try to fix our country. And the kind of disrespect from a nation like Canada should not be taken. And there should be explanation. But although we get into here, and there is a tweet about 6 hours ago from the Canadian High Commission of Nigeria, and on their Twitter and on their X handle, and this is what they are. It's very short and very straight to the point. Albeit very vague. It says the High Commission of Canada in Nigeria is aware of media reports related to planned travel to Canada by senior officials. However, for privacy reasons, we are unable to provide any comment on the status of visa applications of specific individuals. That is what is stated. I don't think that is enough. We're not talking about Shewa Kimaloe. We're not talking about Kabiru Adamu. We're talking about the CDS, the #1 Nigerian military officer. And I imagine that in the treatment of such of a magnitude, the man does not even look like he understands the reason why he was refused a visa. I mean, except if I'm wrong, should there be some, I mean, if a country refuses the citizen of another country visa, that man is going in the capacity representing Nigeria, is a #1 Nigerian military officer. Much explanation should be given. Instead, I mean, was Wednesday, he was there on Thursday. He was supposed to have traveled on Wednesday, was supposed to be in Canada on Wednesday, which meant that he was not refused visa this week. It was probably refused visa last week. So it means that up until when he spoke out, there hasn't been any communication.
So I can have that, a guess and some explanation. Consular sections are usually autonomous to a larger extent within Western embassies. They more or less function on their own with very little interference from the other units within the embassy. So this may have been a decision taken by the consular department without perhaps the knowledge of the other departments within the embassy. And of course, when the media outcry became what it became, it was a crisis for the Canadian High Commission, and so they were forced to make that response. And in their usual manner, that response is vague. It does not really speak to the issue, but of course, they have acknowledged that they are aware. So like I said earlier on, the onus is on Nigeria. The Defense Headquarters should write to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, inform them officially that this is what happened, and then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would formally write to the Canadian High Commission requesting for an explanation. Now, the Canadian Embassy can come back to say a visa is not, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
If they decide not to give, they are not obliged. Yeah. But then it has a consequence on our relationship with them. And as you know, diplomacy is really about reciprocity. Mm-hmm. We can take it and then decide to give it back to them in some other ways. I'm not sure if all of that has been done. So I'm hoping that the right thing would be done by the different parties, starting from the office of the Chief of Defense Staff, writing to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, notifying them, and then of course the Ministry of Foreign Affairs taking the right action. But irrespective, I think it's very important to remind ourselves of the very warm relationship, strategic, that exists between Canada and Nigeria. And I think this is a consular issue. It is disrespectful. Every Nigerian that I know is unhappy about the development.
It's also more disrespectful in the sense that when you're making an explanation, as a consular or an embassy, or I mean, involved in diplomatic relationship, you need to also understand the essence of communication. So if you want to free yourself of the blame, you could easily had said, no, it is not our fault. And there are reasons why, other than what is seen on the surface, we might not, because of private reasons, release to the public the reasons. But however, the issues are on the side of Nigeria, and easily. And it also shows when countries say, look, we will tell you what we want to tell you. We don't care what you believe in. And not every leader of the world, not every nation can behave like a Trump, who will say Canada should be the 51st state of America. No country should be, no person whatsoever in the world should be derogatorily treated.
Not at all.
And I do believe that until Nigerians also see themselves as somewhat a big boy on the continent, and we cannot be pushed around by any country whatsoever in the world, when we realize just how blessed we are by God. Not that Canada should also treat us in that manner. Canada,
and I think this is the essence of the statement by the National Security Advisor, Malan Nuhu Ribadu, when he reminded us that we need to fix our country.
Absolutely.
It takes me back to a statement by the president in Kaduna last year, when he, in a very clear manner, reminded us of the need to harness our national powers. Now, it is only when we harness our national power that we can be respected. At the moment, Shehu, if you cited the fact that you're a journalist, I would beg you to try to, in a way, collate the kind of asylum-seeking reports that Nigerians give when they go abroad. Even you as a Nigerian, you'll be embarrassed to be a Nigerian. They say ridiculous things in an attempt to seek asylum, political asylum, name them, different types of asylum across the world. And then the other side of it is that embassies collect information locally. Now, this is the information that shapes their policy towards a particular country. So when you collate all of these asylum reports that Nigerians go to give, and then you collate the reports, the briefs that ambassadors in Nigeria write, it will be very difficult at the moment for us to be respected. So the onus is on us, actually. Let's harness those powers and project ourselves in a narrative that is positive. And so I strongly align with that statement by the National Security Advisor. The onus is on us. I felt he was a little bit emotional and maybe rather undiplomatic in saying they should go to hell. But the essence of the message, the communication there, is that we need to fix ourselves. And I agree totally with that.
Yeah, and so sometimes we need to also blame ourselves and also call some of our leaders out to say, you caused this on us.
Exactly.
We blame some of our leaders in the past. You caused this on us. You've made Nigerians unlivable for our people. And that's the reason why a lot of Nigerians are seeking out.
Migrating in the Japa syndrome.
Yeah. So, I mean, anybody can decide to live in any place of the world if they're accepted there. But,
migration has been with us from
Absolutely.
history. There's nothing wrong with migration as long as it's done legally. And I mean, again, I want to emphasize that there is a very warm and friendly relationship between Nigeria and Canada.
And I'm hoping that the Canadian embassy or the Canadian High Commission, the consular office, we know how to fix this. You don't want to cause the bad blood between those two nations.
On a matter that can actually be
what is a visa for for a CDS that you know is coming back to his office? It's not good. He doesn't need to say your country for anything.
So I mean, this could have been addressed by a simple phone call.
Absolutely.
If the issue, like we're hearing, is because there was no note verbal, a simple phone one call would have addressed it to the office of the CDS, asking for that note verbal. They get the note verbal from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and just submit it, and it would have solved the problem. But again, I think what this communicates to us is the disrespect. We would never do that to them.
So, yeah. Nigerians are actually very respectful. Nigerians have actually, and a lot of people take it as subservience. Nigerians are not subservient.
Not at all.
When you see a Nigerian, especially those of us from the Yoruba land, when we prostrate and we lay our tummies and our bellies on the floor for you, don't take it for weakness.
And I think this is
just cultural. We're just being respectful. So that's who we are.
The outburst by the National Security Advisor reminds us of that. That yes, we maybe appear to be subservient, but it's not about being subservient. It's about the respect that we have, especially for our visitors. And I think that was communicated clearly. The onus is on the Canadian High Commission to fix this. The CDS represents an institution.
It's the #1 Nigerian military officer.
And so when he's treated in that manner, it is the entire institution that
has been disrespected. Yeah. So let's talk about the USAID. And there's been a lot. And inspired from what the #1 citizen in that country has said. And it does look like someone who wants to say the money of America must be for the American people. And you cannot also take away the values, the advantage, and some of the benefits of some of these funding and aids have done to people in less privileged communities and those who have needed some of these aids. But the fact and some of the things that are being said, especially from representatives of the people in the United States Congress, especially from Scott Perry, he's a Republican, I assume, and he said all of those things.
Yeah, he's a Republican.
How worried are you that Boko Haram is being mentioned allegedly to be funded by funds coming from USAID?
Yeah, so Shewin, I'm going to be a little bit measured in my response, and for the simple reason that, as you know, I'm into security, and so the depth of my understanding of these issues is slightly different from the average person out there, and my statements would definitely carry, an impact. It's in the realm of foreign service. This is not new. The espionage and foreign service have been issues that have been on the table for a very long time. But in the manner with which the current U.S. administration is, I would say, washing its dirty lining in public, it's concerning. When we did our assessment post the elections in the U.S. and the Trump administration, 4 years administration, we knew that there would be volatility. We knew that there would be some impetuous reaction, but this is a little bit beyond what we expected. Since the creation of the Department for Government Efficiency, that department has attempted to do a lot of things in an attempt to, as it were, improve government efficiency, and of course Elon Musk is heading that. Then there are questions regarding his role, and at the moment I think there are several lawsuits by challenging even his person heading that government efficiency unit. Of course, we also need to consider the Republican position on the matter, and of course Trump's supporters' position on the matter. Now, for Rep. Scott Perry, he is a Republican. The narrative that the Republicans, especially those that are aligned with Donald Trump, are trying to sell is that the Democrats who ruled before them were supported inefficiency in government. And so anything that is required to improve that efficiency, they would do. Now, in their bid to sell that narrative to the public, we're hearing, I would say, some ridiculous allegations. Now, remember that I have admitted to the fact that there is a positive correlation, as it were, between espionage and development assistance. A good example I'll give you is when the US was attempting to locate and eliminate the former Al-Qaeda leader, Osama bin Laden. What did they do? Fall back on development aid, medicine, vaccine that was being given in parts of Afghanistan and Pakistan. So there is a close relationship between the two. But the manner that Scott Perry put it, associating Taliban with Boko Haram, I mean, I'm struggling to see that link. First off, there are two franchises, jihadist franchises in the world, Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. Taliban does not fall within these two groups. As it were, at the moment, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are killing each other. So I'm a bit surprised when Scott Perry comes up and make that broad, association without giving any clarification. Is he suggesting, for instance, that the Taliban and Boko Haram, which in essence is, initially Boko Haram was an Al-Qaeda affiliated group. Then by 2016, it now became an Islamic State, affiliated group. So essentially what we have in Nigeria and in the Sahel are two local groups that are affiliated with these two franchises. I'm not aware, and again, this is out in the public, if anyone is aware that there are local jihadist groups that are affiliated with the Taliban, then that would be news to me.
What we know is the ISWAP.
It's ISWAP, which is affiliated to the Islamic State.
It's ISIS.
And there is as of today, they are rivals in Afghanistan.
Now, that congressman has said about $697 million annually are falling into jihadist training ground, terrorist training camps in different parts of the world, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and he mentioned Boko Haram training camps. And he says that this is a waste of United States and improper funding or payment that has been out there. Are you saying that there might not be any iota of truth in a direct funding?
I'm struggling to see the link.
Could this be just mere politics? That because those assertions that he made, it's supposed to be an inquisition, but he made them categorically. If you look at, unfortunately, it's a long tape, which we may not be able to play all, but in the main manner in which he spoke, which might be typical of a Republican politician who is gaining some strength fighting against what is perceived as a Democratic Party kind of lax in governance, might be speaking in that light. But one would be worried, as for example, the CDS has said on this program right in that chair, that there are foreign funding of terror in Nigeria. So could you make any link into what he said and what is obtainable?
Again, I'm struggling to see the link between the Taliban, because if I heard him very well, his statement was directed at Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Then later he talked about Pakistan. Now the government in Afghanistan is Taliban-led. And I made it very clear, and I think this is known to everybody. The Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, they are different. So if there are training camps, funds that are going to Afghanistan, and then in that broad statement he brought in Boko Haram, again it's an inquisition. It's expected that he would have submitted whatever it is, a brief with some evidence inside. So the outcome of that inquisition would determine whether his statements are factual or they are,
But let's establish political. Dr. Adamu. Is it fact that there are possibility of foreign influence on terror in Nigeria?
Definitely. I've already indicated in my earlier statement that Jamaat, I don't want to call them Boko Haram, let's call them their name, which is Jamaat al-Ahl Sunnah al-Dawati wal-Jihad. Initially, they were affiliated to Al-Qaeda, and funding for their operations was coming from Al-Qaeda. That is a fact.
Mm-hmm. And there are, for some of us who have interest in terror, not only in Nigeria and how it goes in other parts of the world, there are also possibilities that some governments, in fact, there are allegations and there are evidence to show that some governments of the world are intentionally having what they call state-backed terror on other people's soil for some reason, either political or religious. And this could also have a link to Nigeria and in terms of religious and agitation or jihadist tendency. Is that right?
Yes, it is right.
Could that also be an influence on what is going on in the banditry and in Boko Haram? There are those who will say the link is very, very strong. The ties between some of those bandits and the Boko Haram elements are very, very strong. Similar. The similitude is, in fact, almost too identical to separate.
Yes, but I think we also need to be a little bit careful here and not jump into, I would say, generalizations like the type that Scott Perry attempted to do. It is a known fact that there are foreign affiliations associated with extremist groups across the world. It is also a known fact that terrorism, there is state-sponsored terrorism. But within the realm of espionage, it's very difficult to put it on the table to say this is the country, because they don't do it directly. They do it through layers. And remember earlier on, we admitted to the fact that there is a link between espionage and I mean the Taliban. Yeah. Who created the Taliban? Mm-hmm. It was to an extent between the US and the Russians, and the monster became what it became at the moment. So point I'm trying to make is, in Nigeria it's possible, but the onus should be on us as a people, not just to identify, but to limit the ability with which this is happening. So
on a final note, and quickly to Dr. Adamu, if you were the CDS, if you are the NSA, some of this information, how worthy would you be and what would you be doing immediately? Just 30 seconds so that we can...
So immediately the disruption of USAID happened. I sat down in Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited and did a very lengthy analysis. What would be the outcome of the disruption of USAID? USAID has enormous assets, both in the security realm, health, name them. Now, what will be the outcome of that asset? We're going to have loose cannons on our hands, Shehu. Loose cannons.
And that's a major problem.
It's going to be a huge problem. Because think about it, a significant number of assets are going to be on the loose. The jobs have been lost, and they're not going to go back to the US. They are going to remain somewhere either in Nigeria or around us. So if you ask me what especially the National Security Advisor, what he should be doing, get some young hotheads, eggheads, put them in a room, tell them to come up, and they can even use AI. Simulations of what the likely consequence and outcome, and I'm happy to share what I've developed with him. But what is important is to strengthen our intelligence capabilities. We have 3 instruments: the National Counterterrorism Strategy, the Policy Framework on Countering Violent Extremism, and then the Terrorism Prohibition and Prevention Act. We need to implement that. The President should ask for an evaluation on the level of implementation of those documents. Most of them are old. They started in 2016, and they are due for review. So much has changed in the world. That review should include even people like journalists should be as part of that validation process for these true documents. The time for us to be in the manner that we're handling public security
and more intelligent.
Yes, our approach should be more forward-looking.
Thank you so much.
One that uses technology and that is able to look forward in a manner that is preventative and also strategic.
Dr. Kabiru Adamu is a security expert and China's television security consultant. And of course, the executive director of Beacon Consulting Security Limited. Thank you so much indeed.
My pleasure. Thank you for
having me. My pleasure. You look good. Seems like you came straight from the mosque.
Yes, I did. It's Friday.
All right, it's Friday, but it's not done. Only that some of us are not looking red in terms of the mood in town today. I hope that you've gotten some money to get flowers and gifts. It's Valentine's Day for those who believe in it. But we're going to break. When we come back, attention will be on the South State, Edo State. The Secretary to the Government of Edo State will be joining us. What has Okwebolo done in the last 100 days or so is being at the helm of affairs? Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Thanks so much, everyone. In a matter of days, Senator Monday Okwebolo will be marking 100 days in office. But beyond that, who is interested in those numbers or in those days? It's about the impact of what he says he will do. He says he's going to make Edo State better, and he's made a lot of promises. There are those who believe that he's not the right man as they're challenging his mandate in the tribunal, and that will go in an interesting form and manner as that tribunal has been sitting in Abuja tonight. Let's take a look at what Okwebolo has been doing in the business of Edo State. I'm being joined tonight by Umar Kilo, who is a lawyer and the Secretary to the Government of Edo State, is live for us here in Abuja studio. Thank you so much, SSG, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shehu.
Almost 100 days.
Yes.
Your opponent don't think that the mandate belongs to Okwebolo. Well, is there pressure on your government to deliver?
No pressure at all. The governor, His Excellency Monday Okwebolo, knew from day one what he wanted to do, and he was fixed on doing those things. He's not under pressure. He's very confident that Edo people voted for him, and he's working tirelessly to work for Edo people and deliver on his mandate.
It does look to me like a man who wants to impress. And that those who believe that, oh, it's only a man whose mandate is not assured. He's just going to spend a few days before he's being taken away by court decisions. And there are those who believe that in the court, their real mandate will be validated. For a moment, how worried is your camp that this might go or not go in your way in the courtroom?
We are not worried at all. Like I said, the governor is very confident that this mandate belongs to him, and he's not worried about what is happening in the court. The lawyers are doing what they need to do. And if you have been following what's happening in the court, you would realize that there is no cause for alarm, because it is who alleges that must prove. And the evidence that has been presented so far is giving us that very strong confidence that the mandate that Edo people have given us is real, and we are giving them real results for that mandate. And you mentioned that he looks like a man who wants to impress. I think I have to say something about that. That is not the case. If you knew him before he even ran for governorship, you would know that he has always been like this. Years before he ever thought of going into politics, he was involved in community development, infrastructural development within Edo Central, where he comes from. And he's been doing that for years.
The reason why I asked you that question is that your opponent will say he wants to impress the people of Edo State as though he owns the shoes, and they say the shoe does not fit him, because they don't believe that he's the man who's given the job rightfully. And that he just wanted to show that he's got something. But according to them, he's got nothing.
Well, I think there is enough to show. Maybe if you come on Wednesday, the 100th day, you would find enough on ground. We invite you to Edo State. There is a lot to show.
All right.
So far, we have compiled over 100 policies, projects, programs to show Edo people and the world.
Let me take you up on a few issues. So you see, I see that administratively there are also some issues. There is a suspension of the Attorney General, and there are those who say, yeah, your camp is really disintegrating.
No, not at all. Rather, you would see it as a message or an indication that you have a new sheriff in town who means business and who is after accountability, transparency, and, giving what belongs to Edo people. And so I think that is the message. It's not about having any trouble in the camp. He has put together the right team, and he has sent a message across that he is a no-nonsense sheriff. And if there are allegations that needs to be clarified, he would take it seriously, and he would require officers who are involved to step aside for a while the investigation takes place before they are either cleared or recalled.
Okay, so let's go into what Okpebholo says he is going to do. There are those who say he doesn't have any business being the governor. But let's see what his business has been since he got into office. Next week will be 100 days since he got into office, but I don't know where the tradition started from. Sometimes it's in American politics where these 100 days of fever and the pressure to want to hit the ground running. There are those who will say, politically speaking, he hired the son of one of the political godfathers in this, Adams Oshiomhole, commissioner for health, and he's not announced any other commissioner. That again drew the attention. What kind of politics is that?
Well, I have to redirect that. He was not the only commissioner appointed. The first day there were 3 commissioners together with the SSG. He made these appointments very strategically. That is because from day one he knew what he wanted to do. So certain strategic appointments were made in order to get the government running, and he hit the ground running. One of it was the Commissioner for Health, the Attorney General, and, you know, the secretary to the state government.
He was the only about
Commissioner for Justice,
just,
right? Commissioner for Justice.
Yeah, but,
right?
but we do know that naturally that comes around almost at the same time. The SSG, the spokesperson of the governor, is being appointed. But Commissioner for Health. Why not Commissioner for what?
Commissioner for Health, Commissioner for Justice, Commissioner for Finance. 3 commissioners.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Right. So, and then...
Why Oshomole's son?
Oshomole's son is a
political
doctor.
payment?
No, not necessarily. I think you had the leader himself here who mentioned that he was never aware. I think the deputy governor mentioned that even the father was never aware, never spoke to the governor about it. So, Cyril is a medical doctor by training, internationally trained, so he's very qualified. So I'm not very sure that we need to follow it.
Doctor that could be Commissioner for Health?
No, he was also in the project, and he's very qualified.
Okay.
And so the governor made his decision.
So give us an understanding of some of these policies, and I take first and foremost the inquisition into what has happened in the past. So the governor said he wanted to know what has happened in the past, which has been touted as a simple witch hunt.
Not necessarily so, because if you followed the development, we did not have any smooth transition. So we came in practically flying blind, and the government had no idea of what the assets. But there was a transition
committee on both sides.
Yes, but the side of the outgoing government was not providing the necessary information. So it became stalled, and nothing really came out of that transition committee. So the governor thought it wise to set up an asset verification committee to have an idea of the entire assets, because we had so many conflicting information. What we thought belonged to the state, we were now being told did not belong to the state. And a lot of information were not adding up, so the governor decided to set up this asset verification committee to confirm what belongs to the state and what does not belong to the state. And it has been very revealing from the report submitted by the committee.
What did you find out?
We found out that the best way to describe it is that there was a lot of corporatization of what belongs to ordinary Edo people, in the sense that in the name of investment, consultants were brought in who were not Edo citizens to run the state and use that as a platform to fleece Edo people's common resource. And sometimes in the name of investing in projects, I'll give you an example, for example. You know, the Radisson Blu Hotel project. This is a project initiated by the state government. An SPV was formed under the Ministry of Finance. At the end of the day, they went to the capital market, raised about 17 billion, provided land worth over 2-point-something billion. So in total, this money constituted about 70.9% of the total cost of the project. And along the lines, a foreign investor came in to provide the balance, which was just about 20%. But towards the tail end of the administration, a month to handing over, a new company was formed. The state shares were transferred to that new company. And we were now told that Edo State now owns only 20% in Radisson Blu. That's really abracadabra. If you brought 80% of the fund, you now own 20% of the shares.
I'm able to explain to you, because what you see and what is also what happened could be two different.
No explanation. Letters were written to this new company, Tilbury, that was formed around September of 2024, just a month to hand over, and they never responded. They never appeared before the police.
What would you say that Okpebholo has done in these 100 days? We see him go to schools, we see him go to roads that are under construction before he came into office, and the opposition is saying, why are you owning what has been on the ground? This is not your own initiative.
Not at all. If you followed what has been happening, you would discover that he is going to places where there is problem. For example, the very first day he was inaugurated, he went to Ramat flyover. It's a big problem. Edo people have been talking about it. Ramat bypass, it's a problem of gridlock. And he said, we will create a flyover here. and in a week or two, work started there. We went to classrooms. He went to classrooms to see schools, to see the state of a popular program by the last administration called Edo Best, and discovered that it was nothing but a scam because the infrastructures were dilapidated. The school infrastructures in Edo State is still where Comrade Adams Oshomole, left it. And so he undertook to reconstruct these schools and renovate them. And then for roads, he has initiated new roads, up to 13 new roads.
Which are these roads?
They are there.
Which are they?
For example, the flyover, for example, the Benin, the rehabilitation of the Benin-Auchi Road, the Ekpoma, the failed axis. I think it was always in the news. It was an eyesore for Edo State. And that is the place where the former governor used to put a big board. Please bear with us, this is federal road. But he said, Edo people, 90% of the users of this road are Edo people. Even if it's a federal road, we can engage with the federal government, reach an understanding, we do the road, and Edo people benefit. And that is what has happened.
How do you capture this project that are not appropriated for? Because you're just getting into your own forced budget. If this has not been in the initiative of the past government, how do you then begin a project that has not been appropriated for?
They were appropriate for. There was a supplementary budget that was passed immediately we came in. So it was prepared by the last administration, but they couldn't pass it because the House of Assembly didn't take it. So immediately we came in, they passed it. So we started working with that supplementary budget, and then we continued with the 2025 budget. So they were all appropriated for, and they all followed the normal procurement rules.
So there are those who say Okpebholo came into office and was complaining that even some police stations were in bad shape and was going to fix the security apparatus in the state. But nothing, as of the time that he mentioned it, and now has been done in that respect.
Something
in the very first week. He said it, he made a noise about it. Oh, our police stations are this, and that's why crime. But almost 100 days later, nothing has been done.
Well, security is, you need a multifaceted approach to tackle security. It's not just about fixing police stations. By the way, there are actually projects fixing police stations among some of the projects that we have listed in our 100 days to show. But outside that, he has provided security vehicles, for confronting criminal gangs, kidnappers, and all that. In the last administration, what we had as security vehicles were rickety, fairly used Siennas. Now the governor procured brand new Toyota Hilux and also motorbikes, mini power motorbikes.
Out of the security votes.
Of course. So these are going to be given to security agencies, all the security agencies. And then we are also setting up and validating the Edo State Security Network that was banned and later called back, and that has now been empowered to, provide security
quickly
for
because
people.
We need to close. He says that he initiated the Back to Farm initiative. He was talking about the education, and there are those who are already laughing in the opposition to say, look, Obaseki has taken education in Edo State to the level that Okpebholo may not be able to comprehend, because Obaseki, according to him, is coming from a private sector that understand how these matters. So when Okpebholo comes in and says, oh, he wants to take education to the next level, they started laughing. Just to wrap up, Back to Farm, the education initiative of Okpebholo. What are you exactly up to?
Back to Farm, I will give you numbers. Obaseki, the last budget he did was 5.9 billion for agriculture. But because we are following the federal government initiative, agriculture is a big deal now, Okpebholo increased the agriculture budget from that to 70 billion. That's about
from 5 billion.
From 5.9. That's about 1,000% increase. That's indicative of what he intends to do with agriculture and food security. Now, talk of education. The whole concept of Edo Best was a scam. It was nothing but PR to access World Bank's 75 billion grant. That's the summary. if you want to see the facts, you come to Edo State, you see the facts on the ground. No infrastructure, no teachers, no personnel. Now Okpebholo is reviving that.
Because
that is
you
the
look
facts
at
on
the
the
ladder
ground.
in which your state has climbed over the last few years in education ranking in Nigeria. Is that also a scam? The performance of your students in the state?
No, that is not the case. But when you don't have the teachers and the infrastructure, you know, in schools in big local governments like Oredo and Ipoba Oka, you have no classrooms, no schools, no desk, no windows, no teachers. You buy a tab that needs power, no internet, and you say you are doing Edo Best. Edo Best was nothing but tabs that was displayed in 3 local governments when there are 18 local governments. Nothing happened in the interior.
Omar Kilo, the secretary to the state government of Edo State, is the state and the governor of the state are looking forward to the 100 days next week. Okpebholo and
you are invited.
I'm always busy here. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimani. I'll see you on Sunday, 8 p.m. God bless Nigeria.